I've got some exciting, at least exciting to me, projects coming up, including staked chairs, a craftsman style bed, and these fun little mallets that I'll go more into another time. But before I get to all of those, I have some just general shop projects that have been sort of building up over the last couple of months, and I want to get to them all at once so that they're out of the way. So this is going to be the first episode of Mundane May. Years ago, I made a small outfeed table for my bandsaw. It didn't extend past the footprint of the bandsaw, the base and all of that. It's about 300mm, 12 inches, but it meant when I was cutting longer stock, I didn't have any sort of balance issues. You can see here, I've got the problem where the workpiece wants to fall down. Now for longer pieces, obviously, it's still going to be an issue, but it's certainly lessened. I get more of the cut without having to worry about putting a lot of pressure down. Long enough, I'll break out some rollers. Unfortunately, when we moved, or I should say when we were preparing to move, the outfeed table was taken off and got caught in a flash flood storm that we had and got water damage. So I've just taken it off, and it's now about 18 months later. I'm really missing my outfeed table. So in this video, I'm going to remake it and make it a little bit better, a little bit sturdier. Still keep the same basic idea I was going for back then. You can see I've got two holes here, which are drilled and tapped for M8 bolts. This is where the table attached, and when I did this at the time, it was quite scary drilling into my new bandsaw's cast iron tabletop, but it is really not too much of a big deal. The outfeed table will attach here, really only needs to cover this area here in line with the blade, but I'll also want to attach it to the side, so I'll drill and tap a couple more holes on the side here. Large counterbores where the bolts will go means that they can be below the surface and I can still use a socket effectively. So none of this is glued together, as you can see. It is attached. It goes together pretty much like you'd expect. I'm going to add a couple more stretches, about the third mark of each side here. These will be flush with the bottom, so they're the same as this end piece here, just turned. And then on top of that, I'll have the actual table, which will be just a piece of 16mm melamine, as I have that on hand. Be nice and slick, so there and there, then I can screw up into the melamine. Or this will also give me a place on the underside of the stretchers if I want to attach a post to anchor it to the ground to keep it from sagging. After adding the dominoes for the stretchers, the whole thing could be glued together. An offcut of melamine gets cut down further for the table insert. With the top popped on, it looks something like that, but there's a bit of a lip here. It's not at the back, it's nice and flush, so what's going on? Well, I've put in some leveling screws. I got this slightly off, it's like 1/2 mil off. So rather than gluing something on, I can just level it with these screws, backing them out very slightly. Now it's a little bit high on that side, so I just need to fix that up. Then I can drive some screws either down into those stretchers or up through the stretchers, which is probably what I'll do, and that'll lock everything down. An offcut of form ply is perfect for the leg mounting bracket. The two brackets are taped together and drilled with an 8mm bit for an M8 bolt. The leg, a hardwood offcut, receives the same hole for the bolt on one end. On the other end of the leg, using a 1/2 inch Forstner bit, I can overlap two counterbores for the head of the T-bolt. Then a 5/16 inch hole is drilled for the T-bolt shank. Using my small parts routing jig, I could route a stopped groove onto a piece of plywood which will form the foot of the leg. The slot will allow the foot to adjust up and down. The two strips are glued together to form an L. The 5/16 inch T-bolt is captured in the leg and allows me to use a star knob for easy adjustment. Clamps hold the brackets in place while I screw through the stretchers into the bracket. This is far from the prettiest thing in the world, but the adjustable foot as well as the tilting mechanism means that if I tilt the table, I should still be able to have that contact point, so I'm not losing any stability there. Doesn't really need to be pretty. It's going to provide a lot of support for the table, which probably doesn't need that much support, but nothing like overkill really. And there's very little flex now, even putting my weight on that, so perfectly acceptable for an outfeed table. Use a miter gauge anymore because this is in the way. Well, I actually can't remember the last time I used a miter gauge or something, a sled on my bandsaw, but you could notch that out, route a bit into the melamine and into the frame, and they'd be perfectly fine.